Have you ever obsessed over a decision so much that you ended up taking no action at all? What if I told you that the very act of overthinking is the biggest obstacle standing between you and success? Have you ever noticed that the more you dwell on a problem, the less clarity you seem to have? It feels counterintuitive, doesn't it? After all, you're putting in effort. You're thinking through every detail, trying to analyze every possible outcome. But here's the truth. Overthinking almost always works against you. It's a mental trap that keeps you stuck. Think about the moments when you've replayed a single mistake over and over, dissecting every word you said during an important conversation, or obsessing about what you could have done differently. Or the times you've struggled to make a decision, whether it's a career move, a big purchase, or even a simple text response, only to feel paralyzed by the endless stream of what-ifs. These are universal experiences. Overthinking feels like gaining control, but it does the opposite. When you overthink, you don't find solutions. You multiply problems. It's like trying to untangle a knot by pulling at it from every angle. Overthinking drains your mental energy, creates overwhelming anxiety, and often leaves you stuck in the same place, or worse. Psychologist Susan Nolan Huxama's research on rumination shows how repetitive negative thinking correlates strongly with stress, depression, and inaction. She explained that people who ruminate amplify the emotional toll of their struggles, replaying problems without moving towards solutions. The harder you think, the deeper you dig yourself into the hole. Here's how this plays out. Imagine someone stuck in a job they don't enjoy. They spend months contemplating whether they should leave, replaying all the possible outcomes. What if I regret it? What if I fail at a new job? What if I'm not good enough? They tell themselves they're being thorough, weighing their options. But in reality, they're delaying. As time passes, opportunities slip away. The longer they overthink, the harder it becomes to make a decision. Eventually, they stay, not because they chose to, but because fear kept them from moving. Overthinking also creates a false sense of productivity. It tricks you into believing that endless mental spinning is progress, that you're being thorough, and that eventually you'll land on the correct solution. But overthinking isn't preparation, it's avoidance. It's clinging to an illusion of certainty, imagining every possible thing that could go wrong to feel in control of an uncontrollable world. This illusion keeps you from taking bold, decisive action. It's not just emotionally exhausting, it rewires how your mind works. By replaying worst-case scenarios or obsessing over minor details, you reinforce cognitive distortions, faulty patterns of thinking that drag you further into mental exhaustion. For example, catastrophizing, automatically assuming the worst will happen, or mind reading, where you convince yourself others are thinking negatively about you. These habits make overthinking not only easier but harder to stop. If you've ever delayed a decision because you couldn't stop analyzing and ended up missing an opportunity, you've experienced analysis paralysis. It's like standing in an aisle full of options and second-guessing yourself until you walk away with nothing. Now imagine delaying real-life choices, career moves, relationships, financial opportunities, simply because your mind can't break free from the endless cycle of what if? That's not being cautious. That's being stuck. Why do we do this? Why do so many of us fall into the overthinking trap? The answer lies in our desire for control, or at least the illusion of it. The brain craves certainty. It wants to predict outcomes, plan for every possibility, and create a safety net of knowing what lies ahead. When it can't find that certainty, it clings tighter, spiraling into hypothetical after hypothetical. What we fail to see is that the more we cling to control, the less control we actually have. This false sense of control is especially damaging for perfectionists. Whether it's at work, in relationships, or in creative pursuits, the drive to control every detail often leads to burnout, frustration, or failure. By focusing so much on avoiding mistakes, they lose sight of the bigger picture, the goal itself. Ironically, overthinking not only limits your ability to make decisions, but also your ability to grow. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't think things through. Careful thought is the foundation of good decisions. But there's a difference between reflection and rumination. Reflection helps you move forward. Rumination keeps you circling the same point endlessly. The key is recognizing when your thoughts are constructive versus destructive. Most of our overthinking isn't problem-solving, it's procrastination driven by fear. To illustrate this, imagine an aspiring entrepreneur with a fantastic business idea. Instead of acting, they spend months researching, planning, and worrying. What if the business fails? What if I lose money? What if people criticize me? To them, it feels like preparation. But in reality, they're avoiding the one thing that matters most: starting. Months later, they watch someone else launch a similar idea and succeed, leaving them wondering, what if I had just tried? At this point, you might be asking, if overthinking is so counterproductive, what's the alternative? How do you stop the cycle when your brain seems hardwired to cling to every detail, every possibility, every worry? The answer lies in letting go, not of your responsibilities, goals, or dreams, but of the desperate need for certainty. Because no amount of thinking will ever make the future 100% predictable. Letting go isn't about giving up. It's about recognizing that trying to control every outcome is impossible. Once you stop forcing that control, you'll find yourself free. Free to act, free to choose, free to face uncertainty without being paralyzed by it. So let go of the idea that overthinking protects you. It doesn't. It traps you. The sooner you step away from that trap, the more clarity and freedom you'll gain. But how do you let go when your mind fights to hold on? Let's explore that next. Everyone wants to feel in control. There's comfort in believing that if you try hard enough, plan far enough ahead, or worry long enough, you'll be able to shape the world around you. Control offers a sense of safety, a shield against uncertainty. But what if this very belief, your need to control, is one of the main reasons you feel stuck, stressed, or even burnt out? What if the way you think about control is actually working against you? Here's the paradox. The more you try to control every detail, the more chaotic life feels. Picture this. Trying to control everything is like building a sandcastle too close to the tide. You spend hours perfecting every tower and wall, but the waves inevitably come, washing it away. The effort feels productive, but it's exhausting and ultimately futile. How often do you stress over things you can't predict or change? Does that effort bring peace, or does it leave you drained? Think about all the things that directly affect your life but remain completely out of your hands. Other people's choices, the economy, the weather, or random events that shape your day. No matter how much energy you spend trying to foresee every possibility, these variables don't bend to your will. Yet, many still waste time and energy hoping they can control the uncontrollable, only to end up frustrated, anxious, and burned out. Consider the perfectionist, the high-achieving student, the dedicated professional, or the creative mastermind. On the outside, they seem to have everything together. But inside, they're at war with themselves. Their need for control pushes them to agonize over every mistake, replaying decisions and criticizing them long after the moment has passed. Psychologist Sanam Hafiz notes that perfectionists are especially prone to overthinking because their fear of failure drives an obsessive need to get everything right. This relentless pursuit of perfection doesn't create success, it creates stress. Instead of protecting them from failure, it leads to procrastination, self-doubt, and decision fatigue. The more they try to control every tiny detail, the less control they actually feel. This cycle isn't unique to individuals, it's how most of us approach life. Our brains are wired to seek certainty and predict outcomes to avoid risks. It's an evolutionary survival instinct. When faced with ambiguity, the mind works overtime, searching for patterns, checking for threats, and strategizing to fill in the gaps. But here's the issue. Life isn't predictable. The more you try to force it into neat categories, the more you spin in circles. Overthinking isn't preparation. It's the brain's desperate attempt to grasp at certainties that don't exist. Instead of reducing anxiety, it leaves you mentally and emotionally drained. Imagine a young entrepreneur with a brilliant idea for a startup. They believe it could change their life, but instead of taking the leap, they get stuck in their own head. They spend months obsessing, researching, and planning for every potential challenge. What if the business flops? What if competitors copy the idea? What if they're not experienced enough? To them, this feels like being responsible, preparing for success. But in truth, it's fear of the unknown holding them back. While they're paralyzed by overthinking, someone else launches a similar idea and succeeds. It's not bad timing. It's the illusion of control killing momentum. Or think about relationships. Have you ever tried to influence someone else's actions, a friend, a colleague, or a partner? You carefully choose your words, adjust your tone, and try everything to steer their decisions in the direction you think is best. And yet, no matter how much effort you pour into it, they make their own choices anyway. It's frustrating, even infuriating, as if all your hard work was for nothing. But this is another trap of control. You convince yourself that with enough effort, you can change things you never had power over in the first place. And every time it doesn't go your way, you feel powerless. Dwelling on past failures is another way the illusion of control sneaks in. Maybe you've spent hours beating yourself up over decisions you've already made, dissecting every what if or I should have. Research shows that replaying past mistakes makes it harder to move forward. In fact, dwelling on problems increases the likelihood of mental health struggles, pulling you further into a downward spiral. Yet many do it, believing that if they analyze their mistakes long enough, they can fix the past or prevent future failures. The truth? No amount of overthinking can change what's already done. All it does is keep you stuck. So why is it so hard to let go of control, even when holding on causes so much stress? The answer is simple. Control feels like safety. It feels productive. It convinces you that order is within reach if you just try harder. But when you look closer, control is a lie. It's a mask for fear, a way to avoid facing uncertainty and chaos. And here's the kicker. Control doesn't actually stop bad things from happening. What it does is exhaust you before those challenges even arrive. The real secret isn't holding on tighter. It's understanding where your influence ends and the rest of the world begins. True control isn't about micromanaging every detail or obsessing over every outcome. It's about managing your response, not the situation itself. Instead of wasting energy fighting what you can't change, redirect it to what you can. That's how you regain clarity. That's how you take back your life. Imagine the mental freedom you'd gain by letting go of the need to predict and control everything. Think about the pressure you place on yourself, the overthinking, the perfectionism, the self-blame. What would it feel like to let those chains fall away? Because that's what ancient thinkers like Montaigne understood. Surrendering control doesn't mean giving up. It means embracing freedom. The less you cling to certainty, the more peace and power you have over your own mind. Control, as you know it, is an illusion. Letting go isn't weakness, it's moving forward. It doesn't mean life becomes easier, but it does mean you stop wasting time fighting battles you can't win. Instead, you focus on the tangible steps within your reach. That's the shift that changes everything. What if surrendering control isn't a sign of weakness, but a hidden strength? Michel de Montaigne, a 16th-century French philosopher and essayist, lived during a time when Europe was defined by rigid systems of governance, religion, and societal order. In this world obsessed with mastery, Montaigne offered a revolutionary perspective. The human obsession with control not only wastes energy, but also creates unnecessary suffering. He argued that life, at its core, is unpredictable and chaotic, and resisting this reality only makes it harder to live fully. Instead, Montaigne urged us to embrace uncertainty, recognizing that our attempts to dominate life's chaos often leave us more fragile. Montaigne's philosophy of surrender was radical for his time. In an era that valued control above all else, his ideas seemed almost heretical. He observed that people were consumed by fears, fear of failure, fear of mistakes, fear of pain, and that this desperate need to control every aspect of life was precisely what fueled their anxiety. The more tightly we cling to the illusion of control, he argued, the more we suffer when life inevitably defies our expectations. Montaigne's insight was clear. The relentless pursuit of mastery traps us in a rigid cage, one that limits our ability to adapt and thrive when life takes unexpected turns. Stepping out of that cage, he believed, is where true freedom begins. Take, for example, Montaigne's reflections on death. While most people fear and avoid the topic, Montaigne confronted it directly. To him, death wasn't an enemy to conquer, but a reality to accept. He wrote about life as transient and ever-changing, viewing mortality not as a tragedy, but as the natural order of existence. By letting go of the need to control or evade death, Montaigne found the freedom to live fully in the present. He understood that the little control we think we have over life is temporary at best. In accepting this, he freed himself from the constant anxiety of trying to escape the inevitable. Imagine embracing that mindset in his era. To admit that human mastery has limits was seen as weakness. Success was believed to come through relentless effort and control. Yet Montaigne argued that surrendering to life's chaos didn't make one weaker, it made one stronger. This wasn't about giving up, it was about resilience. By accepting uncertainty, he found the strength to adapt and respond to life's challenges without being broken by them. His philosophy wasn't about retreating from life, but about engaging with it in a way that allowed for peace and clarity. Now, let's connect Montaigne's ideas to our modern world. Today, we see echoes of his philosophy in mindfulness practices. Modern psychology has validated what Montaigne seemed to understand centuries ago. The need for control over things we cannot influence leads to heightened anxiety and emotional exhaustion. Researchers refer to this as cognitive fusion, a state where people become overly entangled with their thoughts, treating every worry or fear as something they must act on. Montaigne's concept of detachment offers a way out. Detachment isn't apathy, it's the ability to step back from the endless narratives our minds create. It's about acknowledging the chaos without, letting it consume us. For instance, mindfulness encourages observing thoughts and emotions without judgment, a principle Montaigne championed long before the term existed. Studies show that mindfulness practices reduce anxiety, improve resilience, and enhance decision-making. By letting go of the illusion of control, we stop clinging to fears and worries, freeing ourselves to focus on what truly matters. Montaigne may not have had the language of modern psychology, but his insights align perfectly with its findings. He understood the toll that obsessive control takes on the human mind and offered a timeless solution: surrender. Consider a relatable example. Picture someone meticulously planning their career, creating 5-year plans, visualizing every outcome, and agonizing over every decision. Then life happens: an economic downturn, industry shifts, personal struggles, things they couldn't have predicted or controlled. The result? Frustration, exhaustion, and disappointment. Not because they failed, but because they clung to an illusion of control. Now, contrast this with someone who embraces uncertainty, focusing instead on adaptability. They manage what's within their influence and let go of what isn't. Ironically, this mindset often leads to better outcomes. By surrendering control, they conserve energy for what truly matters, achieving success in ways they couldn't have planned. Montaigne didn't just theorize about these ideas, he lived them. His writings reflect a deep understanding of his own limitations and the chaotic nature of life. By embracing uncertainty, he found peace and clarity in a world that often felt overwhelming. His essays weren't about solving chaos, but about showing how to coexist with it. Whether writing about friendship, politics, or philosophy, Montaigne emphasized adaptability and acceptance as tools for navigating an unpredictable world. What's most striking about Montaigne's philosophy is that surrendering control isn't passive. It's an active process that requires courage. It means facing the discomfort of uncertainty and accepting that perfection and mastery are illusions. It demands shifting your energy from resisting chaos to working with it. In doing so, you regain focus, directing your attention to what truly matters: your goals, your relationships, or simply the present moment. Think about how much energy we waste worrying about things we can't change, the outcomes of decisions, other people's opinions, or future events we can't predict. Montaigne wasn't denying the existence of chaos. He was showing us how to live with it. Research on resilience supports this idea, revealing that people who accept uncertainty handle stress better than those who resist it. Even creativity and problem-solving benefit from this mindset. Breakthroughs often come not from forcing solutions, but from letting go and allowing ideas to flow naturally. In a world that celebrates control and mastery, Montaigne's philosophy feels more relevant than ever. His ideas remind us that strength lies not in dominating life, but in responding to it. By embracing the unknown, we lighten our mental load and become more effective in everything we do. The question is, how can we practice this in our daily lives? Let's explore that. Let's get one thing clear. Some of the most successful people in history didn't succeed because they controlled every detail of their lives. They succeeded because they understood when to let go, when to adapt, stop forcing outcomes, and surrender their need for control. While the world celebrates their achievements, what often gets overlooked is this: their willingness to release control is what propelled them forward. Take Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. In her early years, she didn't obsess over perfecting every step of her business plan. Instead, she embraced uncertainty, adjusted her approach, and treated failure as a stepping stone. Blakely has often said that focusing on progress over perfection was key to her success. By letting go of rigid control, she built a billion-dollar business. Imagine if she had waited for her plan to feel flawless. She might never have started. This is the power of letting go. It replaces stagnation with action. Yet, for many, letting go feels counterintuitive. Instinct tells us to hold tighter to every detail, to analyze more deeply, and prepare for every possible scenario. We're taught that control equals success. But the truth is, the harder you cling, the more energy you waste on things you can't influence. This fixation blinds you to the opportunities and actions that actually matter. Athletes provide a striking example of this. Picture a professional tennis player in the middle of a match. If they overthink every swing, obsessing over angles or replaying mistakes, their performance suffers. They lose rhythm, caught in a loop of self-doubt. But when they trust their training and let instincts take over, they enter a state of flow. Their body and mind sync perfectly, unhindered by over-analysis. This isn't magic. It's what happens when mental clutter is cleared. Letting go enables them to focus on the moment, unlocking their peak performance. This principle extends beyond sports. Many creative breakthroughs happen not by forcing solutions, but by stepping back and giving the mind space to wander. Albert Einstein famously said his best ideas came during moments of relaxation, not intense focus. Modern neuroscience supports this. When you let go, whether through mindfulness or simply stepping away, you activate the default mode network in your brain, a region linked to creativity and insight. Releasing control allows your mind to explore new connections and uncover innovative solutions. Still, letting go feels risky. It challenges everything we've learned about discipline and hard work. It can feel like giving up, but it's not. Letting go is about making a deliberate choice to focus your energy where it's most effective. It's about trusting the process, recognizing what you can control and releasing what you can't. This isn't passivity, it's strategic. By letting go, you free yourself to move forward with clarity and purpose. Imagine holding a rope tied to a heavy weight. You pull with all your strength, determined to keep it from falling. Your hands ache, your muscles strain, and yet the weight doesn't budge. The harder you pull, the more pain you feel, but the weight remains just as heavy. Eventually, the only way to stop the struggle is to let go. The moment you release the rope, the tension disappears. You're no longer exhausted and you can focus on what truly matters. Life works the same way. Clinging to problems and forcing solutions drains you without changing the outcome. Letting go isn't failure, it's freedom. Overthinking is like holding that rope. Your brain replays scenarios, trying to control the uncontrollable. But this mental loop doesn't solve anything. It only leaves you stuck, drained, and unable to act. Letting go breaks that cycle. It clears your mind, giving you the space to focus on decisions that move you forward. When you let go of the need to control every step, you create room for adaptability. Think of the greatest innovators. They didn't stick rigidly to their original plans. They pivoted, embraced failure, and found new paths. When Steve Jobs was ousted from Apple, he didn't cling to bitterness or force his way back. Instead, he founded new companies, reimagined his role, and eventually returned to Apple stronger than ever. This wasn't the result of control, it was the result of surrendering to circumstances and working with them. Letting go isn't just for big moments, it's a practice you can build into daily life. Start by catching yourself in cycles of overthinking. Spend 5 minutes journaling your biggest worry, then ask, is this something I can control? If the answer is no, make the conscious choice to release it, even if just for that day. Research shows that small practices like these reduce rumination and help your brain focus on what truly matters. At first, your mind will resist. It's wired to cling to certainty. But with practice, letting go becomes less about losing control and more about gaining freedom. The freedom to focus your energy, make clearer decisions, and approach life with flexibility. That's where breakthrough moments happen, not by controlling every detail, but by trusting yourself to handle the unpredictable. So, what could you achieve if you stopped trying to control everything? how much calmer would your mind feel? Letting go isn't weakness. It's one of the smartest moves you can make. By releasing what you can't control, you regain power over what you can. And that's the foundation for real success. What if I told you that breaking the cycle of overthinking doesn't require a life overhaul or weeks of effort? What if you could start with just 5 minutes a day? That's all it takes to begin rewiring your brain, moving it away from endless loops of worry and toward clarity and peace. It's simple, but simplicity doesn't mean it's easy. Let's break it down into a straightforward practice that will help you let go of overthinking and reclaim your focus. Here's how to start. 1. Grab a piece of paper or open a blank document. 2. Write down the single biggest worry on your mind right now. Don't censor yourself or try to reframe it. Just write what's bothering you. For example, maybe you're worried about a decision, like whether to leave a job, start a relationship, or take a risk. Write that down. 3. Underneath it, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? Be specific. If you left your job, what exactly are you afraid of? Failing? Losing money? Feeling judged by others? This step forces your brain to confront its fears, bringing them into the open where you can examine them. Once you've identified the worst-case scenario, challenge it. How realistic is this fear? What evidence supports it? What evidence goes against it? For instance, if your biggest fear about leaving your job is financial instability, think about whether you've prepared for that. Do you have savings, skills, a strong work ethic that could help you find another role? Breaking your fears into smaller, tangible pieces makes them less overwhelming. Overthinking thrives on ambiguity. Your brain hates loose ends, so it fills in the gaps with worst-case scenarios and endless what-ifs. Writing these thoughts down exposes them. It's like shining a flashlight into the dark corners of your mind. The shadows were never as scary as they seemed. Journaling helps you catch and question the negative patterns that fuel overthinking, reducing stress and improving focus. You might wonder, how can writing a fear down once actually change anything? The key is repetition. The goal isn't to eliminate all your worries in one sitting. It's to build a daily habit. Spend 5 or 10 minutes consistently bringing awareness to your thoughts and redirecting them. At first, it may feel unnatural because your brain resists letting go. Why? Because holding on to fears feels like holding on to control. Your mind convinces you that replaying scenarios or imagining every possible outcome will prepare you. But this mental gripping doesn't prepare you, it paralyzes you. If writing feels difficult, try this mindfulness practice instead. 1. Sit in a quiet place and close your eyes. 2. Focus on your breathing. Inhale deeply through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold. For 4 seconds, then exhale through your mouth for 6 seconds. 3. As thoughts pop into your head, don't fight them. Acknowledge them and gently bring your attention back to your breath. At first, your brain will rebel, pulling you back into the noise. That's normal. Over time, mindfulness strengthens your ability to notice thoughts without getting lost in them. It helps you detach from mental chatter, seeing thoughts as passing events, like clouds drifting across the sky. This shift doesn't just ease stress, it rewires your brain. Studies show that even 10 minutes of mindfulness a day can reduce activity in the brain's default mode network, which drives overthinking. By grounding yourself in the present moment, you interrupt the endless loop of rumination. Think of overthinking as a deeply ingrained habit, like biting your nails. Breaking it requires repetition. The first time you journal or practice mindfulness, it might feel awkward or even pointless. Your brain will tell you it's easier to let your thoughts run wild, that you're too busy for this. But like any habit, the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. One day, you'll realize that what once felt chaotic now feels manageable. As you train yourself to step back from overthinking, you'll notice a ripple effect. Decisions that once felt overwhelming seem easier to face. Situations that used to trigger stress no longer weigh as heavily. Why? Because you've shifted your focus. Instead of wasting energy trying to control what you can't, you've freed up mental space to act on what you can. Small changes, writing down a worry, focusing on your breath, lead to bigger changes in how you see yourself and your surroundings. This doesn't mean you'll never overthink again. Life is unpredictable, and your brain will still occasionally grasp for control when faced with uncertainty. But the difference is this: you'll recognize it. You'll see the patterns forming before they take over, and you'll have the tools to stop them in their tracks. Let's bring it back to the core idea. Overthinking isn't solved by force, it's solved by surrender. Writing down a worry, observing your breath, or challenging a fear isn't about controlling your mind. It's about teaching it to let go. It's about creating space for clarity, for action, for peace. And it starts with just 5 minutes a day. What if you started today? What if, for just 5 minutes, you challenged your brain's endless cycle of overthinking? The only thing standing in the way is your choice. So make it. Let this small daily practice reshape how you think, act, and live. Because when you let go of what you can't control, you create space for what truly matters. And that's where real change begins. What if uncertainty isn't a threat, but an invitation to grow? Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a vast, uncharted forest. You can't see what's inside. Only the unknown stretches before you. Most people would hesitate, frozen by fear of what they can't predict. But what if you stepped forward anyway? What if that leap into the unknown held the key to unlocking your potential? Uncertainty is part of life. No matter how much you plan or prepare, you'll never eliminate it entirely. For many, this truth feels paralyzing. Fear of uncertainty traps people in unfulfilling jobs, stagnant relationships, or endless cycles of inaction. It's easier to cling to what feels familiar, even if it's not satisfying, than to face the unknown. But here's the paradox. The very fear that keeps you safe is also what keeps you stuck. The comfort zone isn't actually comfortable, it's just familiar. And familiarity can be a trap. Picture someone in a soul-draining job. Every day they fantasize about starting their own business or switching careers. But as soon as the thought arises, fear takes over. What if I fail? What if I lose everything? They think. So they stay put, convincing themselves it's the smart choice because it comes with a steady paycheck. But is it really smart? Sure, the paycheck provides stability, but what about the emotional cost? They feel uninspired, drained, and stuck. That's not stability. It's stagnation, and the longer they stay, the harder it becomes to leave. They may waste years, even decades, all because fear of uncertainty held them back. Now, contrast that with someone who embraces uncertainty. Take an entrepreneur during a crisis. Their initial business plan collapses. Maybe the market changes or their customers' needs shift. Instead of clinging to what's no longer working, they pivot. They adapt to the unknown, even though there's no guarantee of success. It's uncomfortable and risky, but that willingness to step into uncertainty often leads to breakthroughs. Some of the world's most successful companies were born from moments like these, moments when people leaned into the chaos and found opportunities where others only saw obstacles. Here's what most people miss. Uncertainty isn't the enemy. It's a catalyst. It forces you out of your comfort zone and into a space where real growth happens. When you avoid uncertainty, you're not avoiding risk. You're avoiding innovation, creativity, and the chance to evolve into the person you're meant to be. Yes, it's scary, but that discomfort is where transformation begins. Growth doesn't happen in the safety of certainty. It happens when you take a step into the unknown and trust yourself to adapt. So why does uncertainty feel so terrifying? It comes down to control. As humans, we crave control because it helps us feel secure. Your brain is wired to predict outcomes and prepare for every possibility. It's how we reduce anxiety. But here's the irony. The more you try to control everything, the more stressed and exhausted you become. Chasing guarantees that don't exist drains your mental energy and leaves you feeling stuck. The surprising truth is that embracing uncertainty actually reduces stress. When you stop trying to control what's uncontrollable, you free up mental space. Instead of wasting energy on endless what-ifs, you focus on what you can control: your actions, your mindset, and your ability to adapt. This shift is liberating. It allows you to make clearer decisions and builds emotional resilience. Psychologists call this adaptability, and it's one of the most valuable skills you can develop in a constantly changing world. Think about decision fatigue. Have you ever been so overwhelmed by choices that you couldn't make one at all? That's what happens when your brain tries to predict every possible outcome. But when you embrace uncertainty, you simplify the process. You stop obsessing over what you can't control and focus on moving forward with the information you have. This clarity helps you see the bigger picture and make better decisions. Let's revisit the earlier example of someone stuck in a job they hate. Imagine if they shifted their perspective. Instead of fixating on the uncertainty of leaving, what if I fail? What if I regret this? They focused on the possibilities. What if they found a career they're passionate about? What if they discovered strengths they didn't know they had? Even if they stumbled at first, they'd learn, adapt, and grow. That's the beauty of uncertainty. It's not chaos. It's the space where creativity, innovation, and resilience thrive. Consider the 2008 financial crisis. Many entrepreneurs faced the collapse of their businesses, but instead of giving up, some pivoted. They created new industries, developed innovative products, and found ways to thrive in chaos. Why? Because they didn't cling to certainty. They accepted the unpredictability of their circumstances and used it as a chance to evolve. The same principle applies to your personal goals, relationships, or everyday challenges. When you embrace uncertainty, you open yourself to opportunities you never could have imagined. There's a reason uncertainty is often called the birthplace of creativity. When you step into the unknown, you're forced to think differently. You break free from old patterns and start seeing the world through a new lens. This adaptability isn't just useful, it's essential. Whether you're navigating a career shift, a personal challenge, or something bigger, your ability to embrace uncertainty determines how well you handle it. And here's the surprising part. The more you practice stepping into the unknown, the easier it gets. You begin to see uncertainty not as chaos, but as freedom. Freedom to grow, to innovate, and to thrive. This doesn't mean abandoning all plans or preparation. It means letting go of rigid expectations and creating space for possibilities. Embracing uncertainty isn't about losing control, it's about gaining the freedom to adapt. And that freedom is where true growth begins. So, take a moment to reflect. What's one risk you've been avoiding because of uncertainty? What's one step you can take today to embrace the unknown? You won't have all the answers right away, but that's okay. The answers come later, after you've chosen to trust yourself and take the leap. Uncertainty isn't a threat. It's a doorway. Step through it, and you might just find the freedom and growth you've been searching for.